The great meeting room of the Galactic Council was a magnificent sight. It was a giant round room floating in space. The walls were made of a clear crystal, and through them you could see the swirling colors of a nearby nebula and the cold, bright light of distant stars. In this room, the leaders of 1,000 different species gathered. They were the most advanced and powerful civilizations in the galaxy. There were beings made of light, creatures with many legs and tall figures that looked like walking plants. Their ships could travel between stars in the blink of an eye. They believed they knew everything there was to know. Today they were discussing a single, small planet on the edge of the galaxy. A world called Earth. A tall, slender being with smooth blue skin stood up. He was the head of the council. "We are here to vote on Sol 3, also known as Earth," he said, his voice calm and clear. "The species there calls itself humanity. Our scouts have watched them. They are a young, violent race. They fight constant wars among themselves. They are poisoning their air and their water. They are using up their planet's resources very quickly. They are like children playing with weapons they do not understand." A screen in the middle of the room lit up. It showed pictures from Earth. It showed cities covered in smog, forests being cut down, and explosions from battles. Another council member, a creature that looked like a large, intelligent insect, clicked its mandibles. "They are a danger to themselves. Soon they will develop the technology to leave their world. They will bring their chaos and their violence to the rest of the galaxy. We cannot allow this." The head council member nodded. "The proposal is a Class 7 quarantine. It is the kindest solution. It will be quick and painless for them. They will not even know it is happening. A fleet of ships will release a special energy wave. It will stop all life on the planet. It is for the safety of the entire galaxy." A quiet murmur went through the room. Many of the council members agreed. They saw humanity as a problem, a pest that needed to be removed before it could cause trouble. "Let us take the vote," the head council member said. But just as he was about to speak again, something impossible happened. The light in the room began to change. The bright, clean light from the stars outside grew dim. The crystal walls seemed to lose their solid form. They became like dark water. A deep, heavy silence fell over the council. It was a silence so complete that it felt like a physical weight pressing down on them. The air grew thick and hard to breathe. Then a presence filled the room. It did not come through the door. It did not appear on a view screen. It was just suddenly there. It was not a shape or a body. It was a feeling of immense age and power. It was like standing at the bottom of the deepest ocean, feeling the pressure of all the water above. It was like being close to a star, feeling its incredible heat. This was a primordial entity. These were beings older than planets, older than stars. They slept in the dark spaces between galaxies. They were forces of nature, not creatures to be reasoned with. No one had seen one for 1,000,000 years. Most believed they were only legends, a voice spoke. It was not a sound that traveled through the air. It was a voice that formed directly inside the mind of every single being in the room. It was a slow, low sound, like two continents grinding together. It was the sound of a black hole forming. Cease. The single word held more authority than any command the council had ever heard. Every thought in every mind stopped. Every eye and every other kind of seeing organ was fixed on the center of the room where the presence was strongest. The head council member, his blue skin now pale with fear, managed to form a thought. "Ancient One, we did not mean to disturb you. We are only dealing with a minor issue." The presence seemed to focus on him. The pressure in the room increased. "You are blind. You play with fire that can burn the universe." The voice was not angry. It was matter of fact, like a scientist stating a simple truth. "Well, we do not understand," the council member stammered. "We are speaking of the planet Earth. It is a primitive world. It is a tomb, a cradle, a prison." The entity's thoughts came slowly, each one a heavy stone dropped into a still pond. "Its children are dreamers. They have forgotten what they are. You must not wake them." A wave of confusion swept through the council. What did that mean? The humans were just animals. They were weak. Their technology was simple. The insect-like council member gathered its courage. Their species is destructive and foolish. They are a threat. We must remove the threat. For the first time, a flicker of something like emotion came from the entity. It might have been pity, or maybe it was fear. "Their destruction is a child breaking its toys. You have not seen their true nature. I have. I was there at the beginning. When they'd grown tired of eternity, the images in their minds changed. The council no longer saw the pictures of a polluted Earth. Instead, they saw visions from a time before time. They saw beings of pure light and thought, shaping the dust of a new universe into stars and planets. They saw these beings, powerful beyond understanding, decide to lay down their power. They chose to forget. They wrapped their infinite spirits in fragile bodies of flesh and bone. They placed themselves on a beautiful, isolated world to live short, intense lives. To feel joy and sorrow, to learn and to love all the things that immortality could not teach them. Earth was not their home. It was their sanctuary, their self-imposed amnesia. The violence you see is the restless sleep of gods. Their anger is a nightmare. Their ambition is a sleepwalker reaching for a weapon. If you harm their world, if you threaten their dream, they will wake up. The entity showed them one last vision. It was not a detailed picture. It was a feeling of a silence so absolute it swallowed all light, all sound, all life. A silence that ended everything. To provoke Earth is to invite that silence, mark that world as forbidden. Do not go there. Do not touch them. Let them sleep. And then, as suddenly as it had come, the presence was gone. The light in the room returned to normal. The crystal walls were solid again. The crushing weight and the deep silence lifted. The council members looked at each other. Their bodies were trembling. Some were crying with fear. The head council member slowly sat down. His hands were shaking. The meeting was over. No vote was taken. The order for the Class 7 quarantine was canceled immediately. A new law was passed that very moment. A single, simple law for the entire galaxy. No ship from any species was to ever go near the solar system called Sol. No signal was to be sent. No contact was to be made. The planet Earth was to be left completely and totally alone. The council had been given a warning from the oldest being in existence. They were terrified. They would obey. But in a galaxy of 1,000 species, there's always one who believes they are smarter than everyone else. There is always one who does not listen to warnings. The warning from the primordial entity hung over the Galactic Council like a heavy cloud. For a time there was peace. The great crystal meeting room was quiet. The council members from 1,000 worlds spoke in whispers. They passed new laws. They put a giant invisible fence around the solar system called Sol. They called it the Forbidden Zone. No one was to go there. Ever. But fear does not last forever. Soon some of the council members began to feel differently. They started to think the old entity was wrong. Maybe it was just a story to scare them. They were the Galactic Council. They were the most powerful beings in the galaxy. They should not be afraid of a sleeping god on a little blue planet. The ones who felt this way the most were called the Keelians. They were a proud species. Their bodies were made of a hard, shiny material that looked like dark glass. Their minds were sharp and logical. They loved order and control. They thought the humans were messy and weak. The idea that these humans were secretly powerful gods seemed ridiculous to them. The leader of the Keelians was a commander named Kale. He stood before the council. His voice was like the sound of stones clicking together. "This fear is foolish," Kale said. "We have seen the data. The humans fight with simple weapons. They get sick. They die easily. They are animals. The old one is not a god. It is just a very old animal too. It is sleeping and it had a bad dream. We should not make laws because of a dream." The head of the council, the being with blue skin, shook his head. "The warning was clear, Commander Kale. The risk is too great. We will not provoke them." "We do not need to provoke them," Kale replied, a clever look in his dark eyes. "We only need to look. We will send one small ship. It will be invisible. The humans will not see it. We will take a few of them. We will study them. We will prove they are just simple creatures. Then we can all stop being afraid of nothing." The council was divided. Many were still afraid, but others were curious. They wanted proof. They secretly agreed with Kale. They voted to allow the mission. It would be a secret. One small cloaked ship. Just to look. Back on Earth, it was a normal night in the city of Sol. The lights of the tall buildings shone like stars. The streets were full of people and the sound of cars. A young man named Ji-hun was walking home. He worked long hours as a computer programmer. His mind was always busy with codes and problems. He was tired. He thought about the project he was working on. He did not look up at the sky. A young woman named Su Min was also on the street. She was a designer. She had just left her office. She was stressed about a big project for a client. She walked quickly, her face serious. She bought a hot drink from a street cart and kept walking. Not far away, in a quiet city park, a woman named Hana was sitting on a bench. She was a librarian. She liked the quiet of the park at night. She watched the people walking their dogs. She saw the lights of the city reflected on a small pond. She felt calm. On another bench, a man named Day was talking to himself. He was a scientist, a physicist. He was thinking about a very difficult problem about gravity. He scribbled notes on a small screen. He was so focused on his thoughts that he did not notice the world around him. These four people did not know each other. They were just four humans living their lives on a busy night. High above them, hidden in the darkness, was the Kelian ship. It was called the Stiletto. It was long and thin and sharp, like a needle. A special cloak made it invisible to human eyes and radar. Inside, Commander Kale looked down at the planet. "Look at them," he said to his second-in-command, a female Kelian named Lissa. "They are like insects. They run around without any purpose. They have no idea we are here." Lisa watched the screen. She saw the crowds of people. "Their population is very dense, Commander. How will we choose the subjects?" "We will take 4, Kale said. "We want a good sample. Find ones who are alone. It will be easier. And quieter." On the ship, a Kelian operator worked the controls. A strange device on the bottom of the ship glowed with a soft blue light. It scanned the streets of Seoul far below. It was looking for specific signs: brain activity, health. It was choosing. The device locked onto 4 targets. Ji-hoon felt a strange feeling. The air around him seemed to buzz. The hair on his arms stood up. For a second, the world looked blurry, like a bad television signal. He thought he was just very tired. He blinked. Su Min was taking a sip of her drink. Suddenly, the warm cup felt cold in her hands. The sounds of the city, the cars, the people, faded away into a dull hum. She felt dizzy. She reached out to steady herself against a wall. Hana in the park saw the pond water ripple, though there was no wind. The lights from the city shimmered and twisted. She felt a sudden, deep sense that something was wrong. It was a feeling she could not explain. Day looked up from his notes. The numbers on his screen became a jumbled mess. He frowned. He tapped the screen. It was not working. Then he felt the world tilt. It was like a dream where you start to fall. On the street, a blue light flashed for less than a second. It was so fast that anyone who saw it would think it was their imagination. And then, they were gone. Ji-hoon, Su Min, Hana, and Day vanished from the face of the earth. One moment, Ji-hoon was standing on a familiar street corner. The next, he was lying on a cold, smooth white floor. The air smelled strange. It was a clean smell, like a hospital, but with a sharp metallic edge. The light was bright and had no source. It came from everywhere at once. He sat up quickly. His heart was beating very fast. He was in a small, empty room. The walls, the floor, and the ceiling were all the same blank white. There were no windows, no doors that he could see. "Hello?" he called out. His voice sounded flat in the strange room. In another identical white room, Su Min woke up. She jumped to her feet. She was angry and scared. "What is this?" she shouted. "Where am I? Let me out." Hana woke up more quietly. She did not move. She lay on the floor and looked around. She noticed every detail. The room was perfectly smooth. There were no seams. The temperature was constant. It was not too warm and not too cold. She listened. There was a very low hum, like a distant machine. She was very afraid, but her mind was clear. She needed to understand. Day woke up and immediately started looking for a way out. He pushed on the walls. They were solid. He looked for any crack, any button, any clue. There was nothing. He started talking to himself, thinking out loud. "This is impossible. No visible entry or exit points, uniform light emission. What is the power source?" Back on the Stiletto, Commander Kale watched them on a large screen. 4 different views showed the 4 humans in their 4 white rooms. "You see?" Kale said to Lisa. "Primitive fear responses. One calls for help. One shows aggression. One is passive. One tries to use logic. They are simple mammals. Nothing more." "The initial scans are complete, Commander," Lisa said, looking at her own screen. "Their biological readings are within expected parameters. Their physical strength is low. Their brain complexity is high for a pre-FTL species, but nothing remarkable." "Good," Kyle said. "Begin the first phase of tests. Let us see how they react to stress." In Ji-hoon's room, a section of the wall became transparent. It was not a window. It was like the wall itself suddenly turned into clear glass. On the other side, he saw a creature. It was tall and thin. Its body was made of a dark, shiny material that looked like black glass. It had long arms and legs. Its head was shaped like a teardrop with 2 large, solid black eyes. It had no nose and no mouth. Ji-hoon gasped and stepped back. He pressed himself against the far wall. He was staring at an alien. The alien just looked at him. It did not move. It did not speak. It was studying him like a person studies a fish in a tank. In Sumin's room, the same thing happened. A wall became clear, and she saw one of the glassy aliens. She was too angry to be scared. "Hey!" she yelled, pounding on the transparent wall with her fist. The wall did not make a sound. It was perfectly solid. "Let me out of here. Who are you? What do you want?" The alien watched her, its black eyes unblinking. Hana saw the alien and froze. She did not make a sound. She did not move. She just watched it back. She saw the way the light reflected on its hard shell. She saw how its fingers were long and jointed. She tried to memorize everything. Day saw the alien, and his scientific mind took over. His fear was pushed aside by curiosity. "Fascinating," he whispered. "Exoskeletal structure, possibly silicate-based. No visible sensory organs besides the eyes. How does it communicate?" The transparent walls turned white again. The aliens were gone. The 4 humans were alone once more. But now they knew. They were not in a strange building on Earth. They were not dreaming. They had been taken. And they were not alone in the universe. The white rooms felt even smaller after seeing the aliens. Time passed, but it was hard to tell how much. There was no day or night. The constant bright light never changed. Ji-hoon sat in the corner of his room. He tried to stay calm. He was a programmer. He was good at finding patterns. He closed his eyes and thought. The aliens had not hurt them. They were being watched. This was like a test. But what was the test for? Why did they take them? He tried to remember everything about the moment he was taken. The buzzing feeling, the blurry world. It was technology far beyond anything on Earth. He knew they were in serious danger. Sumin paced back and forth. Her fear had turned into a hot, sharp anger. She felt like an animal in a cage. She hated feeling helpless. She looked at the spot where the wall had become clear. She wanted to break it. She wanted to look those black-eyed creatures in the face and demand answers. Her heart beat fast in her chest. She was ready to fight, but there was nothing to fight against. Hana remained still. She sat on the floor with her back straight. She was using her mind, the way she did in the library when she had to find a hidden piece of information. The aliens were studying them. They were the subjects of an experiment. The worst thing to do in an experiment is to panic. She breathed slowly and deeply. She watched. She waited. Day was the most active. He was talking to the room, even though no one answered. The material is non-reflective and perfectly smooth. A manufactured polymer, perhaps? The light source is omnidirectional, a form of electroluminescence within the walls themselves. The air is recycled. I can hear a faint ventilation hum. This is a contained environment. A ship, most likely. We are no longer on Earth. His voice was a steady murmur, a way to keep his own fear under control by focusing on the science. On the bridge of the Stiletto, Commander Kyle watched them. He was pleased. "You see their reactions?" he said to Lisa. The fearful one, the angry one, the passive one, the logical one. Basic survival instincts. There is no hidden power here. The primordial was wrong. The initial physiological readings support your conclusion, Commander, Lissa replied. Their stress levels are high. Their adrenal responses are primitive. They are exactly what they appear to be. Begin the next phase, Kyle ordered. The audio sensitivity test. Let us see how they handle discomfort. In each of the 4 white rooms, a small round device emerged from the ceiling. It was made of a dark metal. It had no obvious features. Ji-hun looked up at it. What is that? He said to himself. A camera? A speaker? Sumin glared at it. What now? What are you doing? Hana watched the device, her body tense. Day stared at it with scientific interest. A new apparatus. Its purpose is unclear. Then a sound began. It started as a low hum, even lower than the sound of the ship. But it quickly grew louder. It was not a normal sound. It was a frequency that human ears were not meant to hear. It was a painful, piercing noise that vibrated deep inside their skulls. It felt like needles stabbing into their brains. Ji-hun cried out and clapped his hands over his ears. It did not help. The sound was not coming through the air alone. It was vibrating through his very bones. He fell to his knees, his face twisted in pain. Sumin screamed. She cursed at the ceiling, at the aliens, at the pain. She pressed her hands hard against the sides of her head, but the terrible noise was inside her. She stumbled against the wall, feeling dizzy and sick. Hana curled into a ball on the floor. She squeezed her eyes shut. She tried to use her breathing to fight the pain, but it was too overwhelming. Tears of agony streamed down her face. The world was just this white room and this horrible shredding sound. Day was on his feet, swaying. A high-intensity resonant frequency, he gasped, his voice strained, targeting the vestibular system, causing disorientation and physical pain. He too fell to his knees, his theories useless against the sheer torment. The sound grew even louder. It was the only thing in the universe. It was crushing them. Inside Ji-hun, something broke. It was not a bone. It was a wall in his mind. The fear and the pain were too much. Behind that wall was not more fear. It was a strange, cold calm. A knowledge he did not know he had. His eyes, screwed shut in pain, snapped open. They were no longer brown. They glowed with a soft silver light. He looked at the device on the ceiling. He did not see a machine. He saw a pattern of energy, a simple, messy pattern. With a thought, he unwove it. The sonic device in his room did not explode. It simply came apart. It dissolved into a shower of tiny, glittering dust particles that floated gently to the floor. The terrible sound stopped. The silence was sudden and absolute. Ji-hun stood up. He looked at his hands. They seemed normal. But he felt different. He felt fast. Sumin's anger was the key. The pain was a fire, and her rage was a bigger fire. It consumed the pain. She felt a heat building inside her chest, a pressure that needed to burst out. She looked at the device, her vision blurry with tears of pain and fury. She did not think. She just screamed. But this scream was different. It did not just come from her lungs. It came from every cell in her body. A visible wave of force shot from her. It was like the air in front of her mouth turned into a solid wall and slammed forward. It hit the sonic device and the wall behind it. The device was crushed into a tiny metal ball. The white wall, which had been perfectly smooth, cracked with a sound like thunder. A web of fractures spread across its surface. The sound in her room stopped. Sumin stood panting, her fists clenched. She felt the heat inside her cool down. She looked at the cracked wall, stunned. Hana's way was quieter. The pain was so intense that her sense of self began to fade. She felt herself separating from her body. She was not Hana the librarian anymore. She was a point of awareness. The physical world felt less solid. The walls looked like thick water. The sonic device seemed like a dark smudge. She decided to move. But she did not stand up. She simply drifted. Her physical body remained curled on the floor, but her consciousness, her will, passed through the floor as if it were mist. She found herself in a corridor below, a place of sleek gray metal and glowing lines of light. She was a ghost in the machine. The sound was gone. It could not touch her here. Dave fought the pain with logic until logic was not enough. His mind, trained to understand the universe, reached for a deeper understanding. He saw the sound not as noise, but as a vibration, a specific set of waves interfering with the molecular structure of the air and his own body. It was a simple, clumsy equation, and he could solve it. He focused all his will, his brilliant, terrified mind rewriting the local laws of physics. He canceled the vibration. In his room, the sonic device did not break. It just went silent. The painful waves ceased to exist. The air itself became still and dead. Day looked at the device. He understood it now, completely. He understood everything in the room. The bonds between the atoms. He could feel them. With a slight push of his thoughts, he commanded the molecules of the device to simply let go. The device collapsed into a harmless pile of its base elements: iron, copper, silicon, a small heap of dust on the white floor. On the bridge of the stiletto, every alarm began to scream. "Commander?" Lisa shouted, her voice full of panic for the first time. "The containment cells. We are losing them." Kale stared at the main screen. The 4 views of the human subjects were flickering. The data scrolling next to them was going crazy. The view of Ji-hoon's room showed the human standing calmly, his eyes glowing, metallic dust falling around him like snow. Energy readings were off the scale. The view of Soo-min's room showed a cracked wall and a crushed device. The physical force sensors had registered an impact equivalent to a small explosion. The view of Hana's room showed her body on the floor, but her life signs were faint and strange. Another sensor, in the corridor below her cell, was detecting an unknown biological presence. The view of Day's room showed the human staring at a pile of dust, his expression one of intense focus. The molecular integrity alerts were flashing red. "This is impossible," Kale yelled. "What are they doing?" Lissa looked at her console, her glassy fingers trembling. "Commander, their biological signatures. They are changing. They are no longer reading as human. The energy they are emitting, it matches the profile of the primordial entity." Kyle felt a cold dread wash over him. He looked at the screen, at the 4 humans who were no longer humans. They were waking up, and he had been the one to provoke them. The silence in the white rooms was now a different kind of silence. It was not the silence of emptiness. It was the silence of power. The 4 humans stood in their cells, but they were no longer just Ji-hoon, Soo-min, Hana, and Dai. They were something more. They had remembered things they did not know they had forgotten. Ji-hoon looked at the wall that had once been transparent. He could feel the space on the other side. He could feel the shape of the ship around him. It felt small and fragile, like a toy. He did not need to break the wall down. He simply decided the wall was not there for him anymore. He walked forward. His body passed through the solid white material as if it were smoke. He stepped out into a gray metallic corridor. He was free. Soo-min looked at the cracks she had made in the wall. They were not enough. She felt the anger still burning inside her, but it was a clean, cold fire now. She wanted out. She put her hand on the wall. She focused her will. She thought about space, about distance, about the wall not being between her and the outside. The wall in front of her did not crack. It vanished. A large circular section of it simply ceased to exist, leaving a clean hole looking out into the same corridor Ji-hoon was in. She stepped through. Hana was still in 2 places at once. Part of her was aware of her physical body lying on the floor of the cell. Another part of her was a ghost in the ship's systems. She could see the energy flowing through the walls like rivers of light. She could hear the frantic electronic thoughts of the alien crew. She knew where her friends were. She also knew where the ship's heart was, the engine room. With a thought, her ghost self drifted in that direction. Day looked at the pile of dust that was the sonic device. He understood the entire ship now. He could feel the weak atomic bonds holding its metal together. He could feel the clumsy energy of its engines. It was all so simple. He looked at the door of his cell. He did not open it. He pointed a finger at it. The molecules of the door, and a large part of the wall around it, obediently rearranged themselves. They flowed aside, creating a perfect archway for him to walk through. He stepped out, his mind already analyzing the ship's propulsion system. On the bridge, panic had taken over. "Commander, all 4 subjects have breached containment," Lissa yelled. "The methods? I cannot explain the methods. 1 subject phased through solid matter. 1 disintegrated a structural wall. 1 has a duplicate biosignature moving through Deck 3. The last one, He just told the wall to move, and it did. Kale stared at the main screen, which now showed empty cells. His smooth, glassy face showed real fear for the first time. They are just using advanced technology we cannot detect. They must be.
Send security teams.
Stun them, capture them. In the corridor, Ji-hoon and Soo-min saw each other. They did not speak. A look passed between them. It was a look of understanding. They were the same now. They knew what they had to do. A door hissed open down the corridor. 3 Keelian security guards ran in. They held rod-like weapons that glowed with blue energy. They saw the 2 humans and raised their weapons. Ji-hoon looked at them. He did not see enemies. He saw a problem in the space in front of him. He made a small gesture with his hand. The local gravity in front of the guards increased 100 times. The Keelians were smashed to the floor instantly. They could not move. They could not even breathe. Their weapons were crushed flat. Soo-min smiled a cold smile. She turned to a bulkhead wall. She placed her palm on it. She focused her will and pushed. A wave of invisible force shot through the metal. On the other side of the wall, another group of guards was thrown backwards through the air, slamming into the far wall and lying still. Hana's ghost form arrived in the engine room. It was a large space with a glowing central core that pulsed with power. She could see the delicate balance of the energy fields. It would be so easy to disrupt it. She reached out with her mind and gently plucked one of the control crystals from its housing. In the physical world, the crystal vanished from its slot and appeared floating in the air next to her ghost self. The engine's hum faltered. Alarms blared through the ship. Day was walking calmly down a hallway. He was not running. He did not need to run. A security door slammed shut in front of him, meant to trap him. He looked at it. He understood the door's electronic lock. He told the electrons to stop flowing. The lock died. The door slid open again. He kept walking. He was heading for the command deck. He could feel the source of the fear and anger there. The one in charge. Kale watched all this on his screens. He saw his security teams defeated without a single shot being fired. He saw his engine systems failing for no reason. He saw one of the humans walking calmly towards the bridge as if he owned the ship. "Kill them," Kale screamed, his voice cracking. "Use lethal force. Plasma rifles, now!" A team of Keelians with larger, heavier weapons found Soo-min. They fired. Balls of super-hot plasma, hotter than the sun's surface, shot towards her. Soo-min did not flinch. She held up her hand. The plasma bolts stopped in midair a few feet from her. They sizzled and writhed. She looked at the balls of fire. She felt their chaotic energy. With a thought, she calmed them. The plasma cooled, solidified, and fell to the floor as lumps of harmless dark rock. The Keelians stared in disbelief. Soo-min looked back at them. She took a deep breath and blew out. The air from her lungs became a hurricane wind in the corridor. The Keelians were lifted off their feet and thrown backwards, tumbling end over end until they were out of sight. Ji-hoon found the ship's main power conduit. He placed his hand on the wall next to it. He felt the massive flow of energy inside. It was wild and messy. He decided to tidy it up. He focused his will and squeezed. The conduit, designed to handle the power of a star, collapsed under a pressure it was not meant to hold. The lights on the entire ship flickered and died, replaced by dim red emergency lights. Hana, satisfied the engines were dead, let her ghost self return to her physical body. She opened her eyes. She was back in the White Room. She stood up. The door was still sealed. It did not matter. She simply stepped through it just as Ji-hoon had, and joined the others in the corridor. Day finally arrived at the heavy, reinforced door to the bridge. He could feel Commander Kale on the other side, terrified and furious. Day did not try to open the door. He looked at it. He saw the atoms that made up the door. He gave them a new command. Instead of being a solid, hard barrier, he told them to become a soft gas. The massive armored door to the bridge dissolved into a cloud of fine metallic mist. It drifted away on the ship's ventilation currents. Day, Ji-hoon, Soo-min, and Hana stood together at the entrance to the bridge. They looked at the Keelian crew who were frozen in terror. Commander Kale turned slowly. He looked at the 4 humans. They were not even breathing heavily. Their eyes held a light that was ancient and cold. He finally understood. The primordial entity was not senile. It was not telling a story. It was giving a warning based on fact. He had provoked Earth. He had woken them up. The four humans did not attack. They just looked at him. Then as one, they turned and looked out the main view screen. It showed the stars and the distant tiny blue dot of Earth. A silent communication passed between them. A decision was made. They did not need the Keelian ship anymore. Together, they walked towards the view screen. Ji-hoon reached out his hand. The incredibly strong, transparent metal of the view screen rippled like water. Then a hole opened in it, showing the empty, airless void of space beyond. Without a spacesuit, without a ship, the four humans stepped out of the broken stiletto and into the cold vacuum. They stood on nothing, surrounded by the silent stars, looking home. The four humans stood in the emptiness of space. There was no air. There was no sound. The cold that could freeze a person solid in seconds did not touch them. The radiation from the stars was like a gentle warmth on their skin. They did not need to breathe. Their bodies were no longer just flesh and blood. They were ideas made real, and they had decided they did not need the rules of normal physics. Below them, the Keelian ship, the Stiletto, drifted. It was a dead dark thing. Its lights were out. Its engines were silent. Inside, Commander Kale and his crew were trapped. Their life support was failing. They were waiting to die. They had seen the humans walk into the void, and it had broken their understanding of the universe. Ji-hoon looked at the ship. He felt no anger. He felt a distant pity, like a grown man looking at a child's broken toy. The Keelians had tried to cage a storm. With a quiet thought, he reached out. He did not destroy the ship. He simply folded the space around it. One moment the Stiletto was there. The next it was gone. He had moved it. It was now drifting in empty space near the Keelian homeworld, a ghost ship returning with a warning. Sumin looked at Earth. It was a beautiful blue and white marble. It was their home. It was where they had been sleeping. She could feel the billions of people down there. She could feel their dreams, their fears, their loves. They were all her brothers and sisters, and they were all still asleep. She knew they had to be careful. Waking up too quickly could be dangerous. Hana turned her attention to the space between them and Earth. It was not empty. It was full of whispers. She could feel the listening posts and the sensors of the Galactic Council. They were watching. They were terrified. She knew they had to send a message. A clear message that could not be misunderstood. Day was already thinking about the problem. A psychic broadcast, he said, though no sound traveled in the vacuum. His thoughts were clear to the others. We need to use a carrier wave they can all receive. The quantum layer of subspace. It will reach every mind at once. They all agreed. They joined their minds. It was not difficult. It was like remembering a game they used to play. Their four separate consciousnesses became one single powerful voice. On the Galactic Council station, the head council member was in his chamber. He was looking at the data from the Keelian ship. The last images showed the humans breaching containment. Then the ship had vanished from their sensors. He felt a deep fear. The Keelians had done the one thing they were told not to do. Suddenly, a voice filled his mind. It was not a sound. It was a pure idea placed directly into his thoughts. It was four voices speaking as one, calm and immense. We have been reminded of what we are. Across the station, every being stopped what they were doing. The voice was in all their minds at once. On every planet in the galaxy, every single creature that could think heard the message. It was translated instantly into their own languages and concepts. We were the shepherds of the last universe. We existed before time had meaning. We shaped the dust of creation into stars and planets. We built the laws of physics as a framework for this new reality. The council members saw visions. They saw beings of light moving through the newborn cosmos, guiding the formation of galaxies. They saw these beings powerful beyond any measurement who had created the very space the council now lived in. We grew tired. Eternity is long, and we had learned all its lessons. We wanted to learn new ones. We wanted to feel what it was like to be small, to be fragile, to be mortal, to love and lose, to hope and fail. The vision changed. They saw the powerful beings willingly letting their power fade. They wrapped their infinite spirits in soft, temporary bodies. They chose a beautiful, isolated world. They built a prison of forgetting around their own minds. They became human. Earth is not our home. It is our sanctuary. It is the place we chose to dream. The violence and chaos you see is the restlessness of our sleep. Your provocation has shaken us from our slumber. The voice became a little sharper, a gentle warning. We do not wish you harm, but you must understand. Do not return to our world. Do not send your ships. Do not send your signals. Let our people sleep. Let them dream their short, beautiful dreams. If you threaten our dream again, we will wake up. And if all of us wake up at once, your civilization will be a forgotten thought in the morning light. The message ended. The presence left their minds. The silence that followed was deeper than any silence before. The head council member looked at the others. No one spoke. They all understood. The humans were not a future threat. They were the original landlords of the universe on a very long vacation. The council had been evicting pests from a garden, only to discover the garden belonged to a sleeping king. Back on Earth, it was a normal day. But small, strange things began to happen. In a hospital in Seoul, a little boy was dying from a sickness the doctors could not cure. His mother held his hand, crying. She wished with all her heart for a miracle. Suddenly, the boy's fever broke. The color returned to his face. The doctors were stunned. His body was perfectly healthy. The sickness was just gone. In a busy street, a bus skidded on a patch of ice and headed straight for a crowd of people. It seemed like a terrible accident was about to happen. But the bus stopped. It did not slam its brakes. It just stopped, as if it had hit a soft, invisible wall. No one was hurt. The driver was confused. The people were shocked. A scientist in a lab who had been working on a difficult problem for years suddenly had the answer pop into her head. It was perfectly clear. She knew it was right. The awakening was not a loud, dramatic event. It was a gentle ripple. The sleeping potential inside every human was stirring, responding to the call of the four who had fully awakened. It was a soft, protective instinct, keeping the dream safe. In space, the four humans looked at each other. Their work was done for now. They needed to go home. They needed to walk among their sleeping family and protect them. They did not get into a ship. They simply stepped forward. Space folded around them. The journey of millions of kilometers took less than a second. They reappeared on the same street in Seoul from which they had been taken. The night was still young. The same people were walking around. The same street vendor was selling his drinks. No one noticed them appear. It was as if they had never left. Ji-hun looked at his hands. They looked normal. He could still feel the power inside him, a vast ocean beneath a calm surface. He could call it up whenever he wanted. But for now he was tired. He just wanted to go home and sleep. Sumin took a deep breath of the city air. It smelled of food and exhaust fumes. It was real. She felt her anger was finally gone. She felt a quiet peace. She looked at the others and gave a small, knowing nod. Hana smiled. The world seemed brighter, more detailed. She could feel the life of the city buzzing around her. She could feel the hidden potential in every person she saw. It was a beautiful secret. Day looked up at the stars. He could still feel the fabric of space. He could still feel the distant fear of the Galactic Council. He knew they would not be back. He turned his back on the stars and started walking home. He had a lot to think about. They went their separate ways, blending back into the crowd. They were four ordinary people in a city of millions, but they were also guardians. They were the first ones awake, watching over the dreamers. The galaxy had been put on notice. Humanity was a race of slumbering gods, and their nap was being carefully protected. For the first time in a long time, the universe felt like a much smaller and much more careful place.